You're watching RTV News with me, Jane Mutoni. Prime Minister Dr. Eduardo Ngirente has called for international cooperation in the recovery of COVID-19-stricken economies. The plenary session of the Senate has reiterated that unity and reconciliation groups should be adequately supported and trained. A very warm welcome to the news in details now. Prime Minister Dr. Eduardo Ngirente has called for international cooperation in the recovery of COVID-19-stricken economies. He made the remarks at the 8th edition of the World Government Summit in Dubai. Innocent Mugabo reports.
Please welcome our next speaker to share.
At the 8th edition of the World Government Summit, Prime Minister Dr. Eduardo Ngirente delivered closing remarks at the session on the Sustainable Development Goals in Action, where he noted that Rwanda has made efforts in developing strategies to address the COVID-19-stricken economy so that it can achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Talking about what Rwanda is doing to curb the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Prime Minister stressed that the Rwandan economy is on the rise due to initiatives such as the establishment of the Economic Recovery Fund, something he says led to a growth of 10.9% in 2021.
The government of Rwanda's economic response was driven by the Economic Recovery Plan, comprising sizable fiscal and monetary policy support, Economic Recovery Fund, and a program called Manufacture and Build to Recover, and also a prompt vaccine rollout. And I can tell you that so far, over 60% of our population above 18 is now fully vaccinated. Today, the government of Rwanda is optimistic as recovery initiatives are delivering tangible results. Rwanda is showing promising signs of recovery, whereby it grew by 10.9% in 2021 and it's projected to grow at a rate of 7.2% in 2022. Excellencies, this session on SDGs in action is an appropriate moment for us as a global leaders, both in the public and business community, to reflect and devise strategies to reinforce our commitment and maintain the momentum for the decade for action 2021-2030.
Prime Minister Dr. Eduardo Ngirente also pointed out that to achieve sustainable development goals, measures must be taken to bring about economic cooperation between countries and the international community.
The lack of adequate investment in SDGs to date has made many countries vulnerable to economic fallout from COVID-19 crisis. Sustainable recovery requires solid foundations, including global cooperation and effective integration of SDGs into national recovery plans of both developed and developing economies. Recovery must also be underpinned by multilateralism and the collaboration between governments, international organizations, international financial institutions, civil society, and the private sector, and draw on international research and innovation to get our shared goal back on track. Excellencies, distinguished guests, as Rwanda, we are committed to working this transformation journey toward achieving the 2030 agenda, domesticated in our national strategy for transformation, as well as collaborate with other countries, especially on the African continent.
The World Government Summit brought together different government officials, decision makers and experts from around the world. They exchanged views on how to develop policies and guidelines that will help improve the structure of governments in the future. Innocent Mugabo, RTV News.
Thank you, Innocent, for that report. Now, the plenary session of the Senate has reiterated that unity and reconciliation groups should be adequately supported and trained as they play an important role in enhancing the basic principles of unity and reconciliation and in finding solutions to emerging issues through dialogue. Now, it was also noted that these groups still face the issue with those who were convicted on genocide crimes that returned to the society after serving their sentences in prison and yet still have genocidal ideologies. Sam Kalisa has this report.
These groups were established with a mandate to address the issue of guilt, misunderstanding between people, fear, shame and mistrust among Rwandans in the aftermath of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Senator Umuhire Adri, the chairperson of the Senate Social Affairs and Human Rights Committee, said the groups contributed to uplifting Rwandans and establishing key principles that the country still builds on.
We found out that these groups played an important role in abolishing ethnicity, but rather promoting the unity of Rwandans and finding solutions to emerging issues through dialogue, and that should be supported.
These groups are dominated by adults, as out of 18 groups visited by the committee, only one is for the youth. Another issue raised by senators is that of those convicted of genocide against the Tutsi who are now completing their sentences and returning to the society. But some of them still have the genocide ideology. If a youth doesn't grow up with a mindset of unity, it would give a gap to those that want to spread hatred, yet we know where our country reached because of lack of unity. By the end of this year, those who were convicted will finish their sentences, and I think those people should first be trained before they get back to the society. Senator Umuhire Adri, the chairperson of the Social Affairs and Human Rights Committee, says although the youth have unity and reconciliation clubs in schools, during the holidays they should join their elders, an idea the committee shared with the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement. As of those who are completing their sentences, Umuhire Adri noted that they deserve special attention.
From where we visited, they told us that there are some of those who finished their sentences and returned to the society with the same mindset and ideology. These people should be taught about the Unity and Reconciliation program, because if that is not done, it is a big problem. With the current programs meant to enhance unity and reconciliation, and with the establishment of the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement, those people will be taught.
The committee noted that these groups contributed a lot in promoting unity and reconciliation. They also assisted in giving testimonies that helped the Gacaca courts, compensation and more. Of the more than 160 groups, the committee visited 18 groups in 10 districts, with 2 sectors in each district visited.
Judges in the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and the other employees in the justice sector are going to spend 3 days in training meant to sharpen their skills to improve efficiency in the sector.
In recent times, we had not been able to get the time to do this sort of thing because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the objective is for us to agree on key problems that have been identified, on how cases are ruled on, and then we can work on improving on the process itself. We are also examining the initiative we started during this month of using judges on contract, especially in primary and intermediate courts, so that cases can be ruled on faster.
Organized to ensure that the country's judiciary meets the required standards. The Directorate General of Immigration and Immigration says the Rwandan citizenship law is now to be implemented following the promulgation of an ordinance published in the Official Gazette a week ago. For immigrants, especially those who have been asking for citizenship for some time now, the Directorate General of Immigration and Immigration says they will be counted and each one's issue will be considered. In areas along the border, it is common that people migrate and live there for many years without national identity cards to help them access various services. An example is of residents of Akanyaru border in Nyaruguru district. Jean-Claude Nsengiyumva, a 46-year-old, says he has never moved any farther than Akanyaru village due to not having any legal document.
The problem is that we don't have legal documents, and moving from one village to another requires one to have legal documents, and we don't have them. I have no one in another area that would host me or even give me food.
Directorate General of Immigration and Immigration says that the Rwandan citizenship law, which was enacted last year, is now to be implemented. Those that have been pleading for citizenship for days will be counted, and each of them will be examined.
After counting them, we shall examine each case on its own and then respond accordingly, because not everyone is guaranteed to get the citizenship. So we shall have to first assess each person individually.
Siwamana Damasen, a 40-year-old resident of Nyaruguru district, claims to have not been considered for a national identity card and instead considered as a foreigner, yet one of his parents is a Rwandan. He says that while statistics on the number of stateless migrants are being expected, the statistics which were being used are of 2012, which were collected by the local authorities, and at the time 9,518 stateless persons were counted. A census is to be carried out across the country. Trainings for census enumerators are being provided. The Citizenship Act states that there are different categories for people who can be granted citizenship, some of which include immigrants. To be granted citizenship as an immigrant, Article 18 of the law stipulates that you must have lived in Rwanda for at least 25 years and have no contact with your country of origin, be honest and have good behaviors, and having sufficient capacity. Rwanda's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation as well as Environment have participated in a discussion at the Atlantic Council in Washington, D.C., focusing on Rwanda's foreign policy and environmental initiatives. Now, the two ministers are in the U.S. on a working visit, and when asked Rwanda's view on the war in Ukraine, Dr. Vincent Biruta had this to say.
Here we are visiting Washington, D.C., to strengthen the partnership existing between the USA and Rwanda. We are working with the USA in many sectors, including defense and security, climate change, health, education, and many others. So we are here to engage with the administration to see how we can take that partnership further. You know that Rwanda is a player in many areas on the continent. You have mentioned security. We are contributing to peacekeeping operations. We are present in South Sudan. We are present in Central African Republic. We are present in Mozambique. And we are here to discuss about how the United States could contribute to the effort Rwanda is putting in bringing security back to these various areas, among others. But you have also received support from the government of the USA to fight COVID-19. You have received vaccines, you have received ventilators from the US government, and today we are talking about manufacturing of vaccines, and we are ready to partner with the US government to see how we can benefit from technology transfer so that Rwanda and the African continent could be a player in the fight against pandemics, including COVID-19, but other pandemics which could arise in the future.
The minister also commented on Rwanda's vote in the UN on the measures that have been taken against Russia.
According to its own interest and assessment of the issue at stake. And that what was done to the UN General Assembly on the issue of Ukraine. As my colleague said, Rwanda voted along the principles enshrined in the UN Charter, territorial integrity, sovereignty, and so on. But other member states, including African countries, voted according to their assessment of the issue, and they based on their own interest, on the historical background and many other factors but it is a sovereign matter when it comes to voting at the UN General Assembly.
Questions were also asked about Rwanda's environmental policies and country's green fund.
Is now facing impact of climate change, even if we are not playing a big role in a contribution to the problem. But the climate change is affecting us, coming from far away. The same way those problems will affect us, even if they are geopolitical problems. But we cannot sit there. For the issue of climate change, the way we are devising strategies and methodology to be part of the solution. That is how the minister was saying that we are devising strategy to source in other parts of the world how to solve the problems that are caused by the problem of Russia and Ukraine.
The Rwanda Governance Board held a meeting on giving updates on CHOGM along with international non-governmental organizations in Kigali City today. This meeting is focused on making the participants fully use the opportunities provided by the Commonwealth People's Forum to give people voices. Sidi Patel reports.
The meeting held today was to provide updates on the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting CHOGM and Rwanda Governance Board RGB along with the international non-governmental organizations INGOs. It is expected to attract approximately 250 participants in the Commonwealth People's Forum, where approximately 100 participants will be national delegates and the rest will be from the open call. People's Forum is more about inclusive governance and the problems lying in that area. The main focus is on networking, presentations and participation in policy formation to contribute to the national transformation of Rwanda.
From the COVID experience, we have seen the inequalities between countries come and be very visible around access to vaccines and access to finance and the negative economic impact that it has placed on countries. So talking about creating resilient health systems is actually very relevant at this point in time. The second sub-theme around access to climate justice. I think the world is now affected by climate change, and we need to talk about what that is doing to different communities and how countries are burdened by climate change and how they are burdened by lack of access to finance to deal with the effects of climate change. I think at this particular relevant point in time. And then lastly, on the human-centered approaches to governance, I think it is important that all the governance that happens within government institutions, the state and even non-state actors around how they engage their populations in aspects of governance is very important for it to be human-centered, to be responsive and also to leave no one behind.
People's Forum brings out the voices of people to put forth the issues that affect them. They are able to gather the voices of people in their day-to-day work. They also have sector experience of things they talk about on a daily basis as they engage with sector working groups in line with ministries. So when they come together in the forum, they would be able to express their ideas, opinions, and together with other Commonwealth countries, they will be able to bring together their expertise, insights, experience, collective evidence, and present this information to the heads of states with the aim that once they have a full picture of the mandate that they have and all the issues coming will be able to make better placed decisions, and these decisions will drive the countries forward.
RGB has been very forward in giving us cues on how we can be involved in the sense of what our contribution can be in the various areas that are of importance, especially in terms of transforming Rwanda and our contribution to the world in terms of the Commonwealth. The bigger question here is how can we positively contribute and participate in terms of giving our input into what can be of discussion to bring about the change that is needed. Therefore, this is an opportunity, not necessarily to market, but an opportunity also to create awareness of the activities that we engage in, so that it is an opportunity also to make the wider community to know the presence or how they can also be part of this in terms of either they are partners or even people with whom we can engage.
Participants are allowed to participate in more than one fora depending on the area of their intervention, but will require accreditation, and each forum has its own accreditation.
Since the onset of preparing the CHOGM, we knew that Rwandan civil society would participate, but also we know that global civil society, Commonwealth civil society will participate. So through the partnership with Commonwealth Foundation, we are engaging both the local civil society and the international civil society in terms of speakers, in terms of participation, and in terms of the kind of influence that the civil society would like to see. So how are we engaging? The meeting today was also about the transparency aspect, telling them what is happening, how it's happening, and what our expectations are for the Rwandan civil society, both local and international. But also it was an opportunity to remind them on their compliance, on their governance, and on greater things, including them building strong systems against money laundering. She is in charge of service delivery and governance. And that has really allowed us the opportunity to hold them accountable on the regulatory structures and systems. We do monitoring and evaluation, but also we enable them in the areas of doing service delivery assessments and their governance assessments, with the purpose and intention of creating an enabling environment for them to deliver to the people of Rwanda. So RGB has really facilitated, and I think the members of the INGO community said that within the meeting, we do those tripartite mandates: the regulatory mandate, the service delivery enhancing mandate, and to ensure that governance principles are being heeded to by the INGOs in different ways.
Rwanda has decided as a host country to engage physically and not virtually despite the challenges. The CHOGM is in Rwanda, but it is not on Rwanda. Focus will be based on the CHOGM. Siddhi Patel, RTV News.
Thank you, CD. Rwandan University students on government scholarships and student loans will now have the option of getting their money via their phones. Students studying abroad will now be able to get their bursary at the country's embassies as a way of preventing incidents of theft that had been reported in the past.
A student will access the system, and what sort of funds they will be receiving will be indicated, as well as any materials that they may need. The student will then select the relevant options, and right away the student loan they are to pay back after graduating will be displayed, including the interest rate. After the student signs the contract, he or she will then be eligible for a bursary from BRD and will appear on the HEC list as having signed the contract, but they must also register themselves at their respective universities. Once all that is done, the student can access the systems for all other relevant information using the student's journey module.
Human resource experts have been noting that Rwanda still needs a lot of capacity building among her workforce if she is to build up a knowledge-based economy. The observation was made as human resource managers are undergoing training on capacity building among employees for greater efficiency. Take a look.
Employees say if their employers were more interested in the challenges they face both at work and elsewhere, it would help with their productivity levels as workers.
I expect him as my boss to be able to ask me what has been going on in your life. Is your mental health stable? Are you doing well? Is the work doing fine? Or I also expect him to ask me an area of improvement. Where does he want me to improve, even if it's in the work or even if it's outside of the work?
Provide an opportunity for growth professionally, to look at the skills that I bring in the organization and where the organization is leading to in terms of the mission and vision, the strategic plan, how they will equip me with maybe additional skills to be able to tackle those kind of challenges ahead, but more importantly, deliver the program and project that are under my responsibility with more impact.
Human resource managers in the private and public sectors are undergoing a 2-day training on capacity building among employees for greater efficiency.
Today's training workshop was to respond on the need from our members, HR practitioners, the leaders from different organizations, about the organizational corporate culture, how the top management, how every administrator in charge of people management are interacting with the people, how they manage the emotions, so that the complicity and understanding of challenges between the relationship of those categories, employee, employer, can be removed so that productivity may be reached.
Rwanda's government is committed to ensuring the proper training of the country's workforce.
We have intentionally desired to have public servants more professional. And the first step is to put it in the job requirements, in the job profile. Most professions are required to be certified, and that is not something that is going to be done overnight. We work with RDB, that is in charge of capacity building, and associations such as this to capacitate public servants to get to those certifications.
Yeah. Human resource experts have been noting that Rwanda still needs a lot of capacity building among her workforce if she is to build up a knowledge-based economy.
I would tell you, yes, a big step has been made. We have, at operational level, we have good people. We have also people who went through high-level education, PhDs, masters. These are our executives today, but when you are looking at experts, really that person who has both knowledge, skills, expertise, we have very few.
As part of a 2035 and 2050 drive, Rwanda is looking to build a knowledge-based economy that will be effective on many developmental fronts.
And that story sums up tonight's bulletin. On behalf of the entire news production team, thank you so much for your company. I'm Jane Mutoni. Bye for now.